Hi everyone, welcome back to the 86 F's to Give podcast. I'm your host Al, and I'm so happy that you are here with me today for episode number 8. We are so close to double digits, you guys, and I just am so excited for that episode. I believe I'm going to have a guest on, so that'll be really exciting. It'll be my second guest. So stay tuned for that in a couple of weeks. But before I hop into today's topic, I wanted to do my normal socials plug, remind you that we're on YouTube if you'd rather tune in visually than just audio, and then also to follow us on TikTok at 86Fs to Give Pod, and also on Instagram at just 86Fs to Give. I'm going to try to be a little more interactive on there. I say this every episode, but I mean it. I'm going to start doing polls and stuff. I've tried to do a couple question boxes and things, so be on the lookout for that and feel free to reply or ask questions and things. Those are completely anonymous, so nobody will see it besides me. Yeah, let's hop into today's topic. This episode is going to be a little different than the other ones in the fact that I'm going to be mostly just talking from my personal experience, not so much research or, the facts or like things that I've learned through therapy and things, just my experience with drinking alcohol. And so today's episode is 86 drinking alcohol. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to title it yet because I'm not trying to fully cut drinking alcohol out of my life or tell anybody that that's what they need to do. But I just want to talk about my relationship with it and kind of the roller coaster that I've been on with drinking since college, really. And so I wanted to share that, and if anybody has any questions or comments or things that they've done that's helped them with like their relationship with alcohol, I would love to hear that in the comments. But yeah, so hopefully this episode resonates with a few people. If not, that's also totally fine, but I thought it would be nice to kind of chat about my experience and relationship with drinking. Before I do all of that, I wanted to just give another disclaimer. I said this kind of already, but I'm not telling anybody that they need to do a sober year, that they need to not drink alcohol altogether, that I'm not judging anybody for drinking. I still drink. I have most of the people in my life drink, and I love hanging out with them. I love interacting with people. I love going to happy hours and, drinking casually and doing things like that. What I'm mostly going to be talking about today is my experience with the peer pressure around drinking and the excessive drinking and my body's reaction to alcohol and kind of how that, reflecting on that has kind of landed me where I am today, which I will get into. And so I wanted to first touch on why this topic is so important to me. I think it's really important is because I didn't really even drink in high school. Yeah, I didn't really drink until I got to college, maybe my senior year a little bit, senior of high school a little bit. But if you knew me in high school, you knew I was I didn't curse, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything. I was usually the one picking people up from parties or not even getting invited because people knew I wasn't going to participate in the drinking or the smoking or whatever it was. And that was just because I generally didn't want to. I was maybe scared. I also just didn't really have any interest in feeling out of control with my body. And that relates to a completely different set of trauma that we're not going to get into today, but just not feeling in control of my body is something that I really don't do well with. And that's what happens when you go under the influence. So, and obviously not if you just take a casual drink or a glass of wine, it's when you drink excessively and you get to that point where you're not able to control your body. We all know that, but I'm just saying that was a fear of mine as a little 17, 18-year-old. So that's kind of why I didn't really drink in high school. And so if you've known me since high school or before then, you're probably it's funny probably that I am talking about drinking and how my experiences were kind of bad with it, which I'll get into. But that's first why it's really important to me is because it happens to everyone. It happens to the people that you don't expect to have a bad relationship with drinking and alcohol. So to just be kind of on the lookout for those people too, because I think they're even a little more, what's the word? Susceptible? Susceptible? Is that the word? I could be fully making up a word right now, but they're the ones that are get caught up in it because they have no prior, in high school you drink one beer and you're like, oh my God, I'm drunk. And you kind of learn your limit because each time you kind of test it a little bit. If you, like me, I went straight to college And we were just doing house parties because there was no bars really, or there was nowhere to go in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. We were just taking shots and like having unlimited drinks really, because, you know, like you just had so much at your disposal because we weren't at a bar where you had to have a fake ID and all these things. Like we just had alcohol around. Like, and so for me, when I first got there, it was like, oh, we're all taking shots. Okay, I guess that's what we're doing. And it's like, I had never taken a shot before. Like, let me figure out what that's going to do with my body before I'm taking 2, 3 in one night. And next thing you know, I'm blacked out. So anywho, that's why it's really important to me, is because it happens to the people you least expect it, as well as the people that have drank since they were 15 or whatever. So like, it's really something that is relatable to a lot of people. And again, if this is not something that you're trying to like fix or work on in your life, go ahead and skip this episode. Honestly, it might still be interesting to you to hear my experience. I'm not telling anybody that they need to fix anything or change anything. It's just my experience. And I'm probably going to say that like 80 times because I really don't want to come across as like I'm judging people for drinking or that I'm better than people because I've done a sober year, which I will get into, or whatever it is. Like that is not where this is coming from. It's just something that I'm passionate about and I knew I'd be able to talk about for a longer period of time on a podcast. So that is why we're talking about it today. Another reason is because, like I kind of started to mention, is once I did go to college and I did start drinking, I went from being the person that didn't drink at all in high school to being the person that was blacked out crying every single time she drank in college. Like I would drink to the point of getting drunk. And once I was drunk, all I wanted to do was keep drinking. Like I needed more and I didn't even like want more. My body was just like, oh, this is what we do. Like we just keep drinking. Like there was no off. There was no telling myself to stop. There was no cutting myself off. It was just, let's keep drinking until I physically can't. And that I really, really did not enjoy. You know, and I'm not, that's like the culture of college, right? It's like we get ready, we go out, we drink, and we drink a lot, and we have fun. And then we wake up the next day and we feel terrible, and we all laugh about the silly things that everyone said and did the night before, and nobody got seriously hurt or anything. So it's funny, and we do it all over again next weekend. But I kind of hit a breaking point. And towards like my senior year of college, I really was like not drinking as much. And, you know, everyone wants to experience like the college and college parties and stuff. So I'm not telling anyone not to do that. But once I kind of got a little bit older in college, I want to say after I turned 21, I feel like this is a experience for a lot of people. Like once you're like able to drink out in public and stuff, it might feel less like, I don't know, less fun. So you don't do it as much or whatever, but some people continue to drink just as hard as they did in college, and I love that for people. I am not able to physically do that anymore. My body like does not let me. But after college, so yeah, I graduated in 2021. In December of 2021, I had an experience that was just really, really bad. If you know the story, you know, I don't really feel like getting all into it, but I just got really, really drunk, like blacked out, caused a lot of people to be worried about my safety, including my parents, including my significant other at the time. And that was the first time that I was like, okay, my actions are actually affecting other people, and I hate being the reason that people feel any sort of negative emotion. So that was really just a big wake-up call. And I then, a couple of days after that, had COVID, and so I was in quarantine for New Year's of 2021 to 22. So I couldn't go out and drink on New Year's. I couldn't do any, like, and I didn't even want to at that time because of the incident. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do a sober year. I don't even know what came over me. I remember just being like, I'm going to not drink for the year of 2022. And I was so sure of myself. I was so confident that I was going to do that. And everybody was like, okay, Allie, like, yeah, everyone wakes up after a bad night and says they're never drinking again. And I was like, no, guys, I am not drinking for 365 days. Okay. I promise. And so I did. And that is kind of what I want to talk about today, is just my experience with the sober year, and also what I learned from my sober year, and kind of what my thoughts are around it now that I'm not. I like, since I've gone back to drinking after doing a sober year. Yeah, it was just honestly a life-changing experience. And that's kind of why another reason why I'm so passionate about talking about this, is because I've just learned so much and I want to share. The sober year thing is, I'm so extremely proud of myself. I'm not discrediting that at all. But for me, it wasn't insanely difficult because I didn't really drink that often to begin with. Even in college, like I didn't drink that much. It was just when I did, it was bad. And so doing a sober year wasn't the most difficult thing because I probably drank like once a month or twice a month or whatever. So it wasn't like I was changing my lifestyle immensely, but it was a tough year to do it during because I traveled to Europe in the beginning of the year. I went to Costa Rica for my second summer in Costa Rica. So I was in Costa Rica for 3 months and like didn't even have a pina colada on the beach. Nothing. And then I also went back to Costa Rica that December or maybe November for a wedding. And, you know, everybody drinks and has fun at weddings. So that was like, and there was a lot of things happening that year, but everyone kept saying like, oh, do it next year. And I was like, no, there's always going to be something each year that I'm going to want to like be able to participate in. And like, I might as well just do it now and do it. Right. So that was kind of my mindset going into it. It was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to not drink for 365 days, but I'm actually going to reflect and think about what kind of alcohol does what to me and think about why I even drink or, you know, what my goal is when I'm drinking and things like that. And so it wasn't just, I'm not going to drink for a year and forget about it. I was actually journaling and talking to people and hearing other people's experiences with sobriety and things like that. And it really was such an eye-opening year for me. And the final reason I want to talk about this today is that alcoholism runs in my family and like addiction is genetic. It's a gene. So I just wanted to kind of get ahead of that before it became something that I couldn't do on my own and I needed like outside help from. So that's another reason why I'm passionate about talking about this is because I know addiction runs in a lot of people's families. And if you're somebody that's like, oh, I just don't understand why, like once I start drinking, I can't stop. Like it could be a genetic thing. So just a little self-awareness there, just trying to start the conversation. And so, yeah, why I did a sober year, I mentioned the incident. And then I also mentioned that I wanted to just overall change and investigate my relationship with alcohol and drinking. So that was my number one goal, is to actually have a new and better relationship and understanding with alcohol and myself after this year was up. Once the year ended, I actually did a TikTok of 10 things I learned during my sober year. So I'm going to actually go through those things as well, because I think those are really the main things that I learned. And I'm going to elaborate on all of them a little bit more than I did in the TikTok. But I really did learn so much about alcohol, about myself, about why I drink, what my goals are with drinking post sober year, and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm going to dive into all of that now. So the first thing that I wrote down that I learned was that I don't even like the taste of alcohol. I don't like beer, never liked beer. I never liked wine. I could maybe drink sangria if I really wanted to, but I genuinely do not like wine, which sucks because I'm Italian and I've been to Italy and haven't even had a real glass of Italian wine. Like I obviously don't like shots or like sipping whiskey or hard liquor. Like I just don't like the taste of any of it. And so it wasn't even like a decision to just be like, oh, I'll drink more casually, like just have a glass of wine with dinner. Like, no, I don't even like wine. Like I don't even like things like that. So it was really made a lot of sense for me to just do the full sober year and kind of reflect on what I liked and what I didn't like. And it turns out I genuinely don't like most alcohols. So the only times I do enjoy it is in some sort of seltzer, or I love an Aperol Spritz. That is the one drink I drank from Italy and loved. And so that is kind of my, something I learned about that is that if I'm going to drink, I want it to be something that I'm going to enjoy while I'm consuming it. Like it's the same with food. Like I'm not going to just, unless it's the only option to me, I'm not going to just eat something or order something out at a restaurant that I don't like because it doesn't make any sense, right? Like I'm going to get something that I genuinely enjoy consuming. And so that was kind of the first big piece to this, was that I was like, why am I even forcing myself to drink something that, one, I don't even like how it tastes, two, I don't like how it makes me feel, and three, it's like toxic for my body. So it was like a whole lot of things that I was just like, hold on a second, I don't need to be doing this. And then the next piece that I learned a lot was that I felt first I started to reflect on why I was drinking. And it was that I was drinking to like fit in, especially in college. It was like, that's just what we did, right? We all just drank and go out. And then I also was drinking because of my anxiety, and I was so nervous to like talk to new people and like go out sober. Like that just felt weird. Or I was nervous to be the only sober person in the room. Like that gave me anxiety. So I realized that there was healthier ways to cope with my anxiety than to just get drunk and not feel my anxiety, you know? So that was definitely something I learned. And, you know, especially in school, I would say I was probably also drinking to kind of just, you know, relax from the stress of school. And I also was an athlete and was really involved, and I was just always on go. And so I think it was like, okay, we're just gonna like get drunk and kind of have fun and forget about whatever stress is happening in life right now. And that also didn't feel like the healthiest thing for me personally. And so over the year of not drinking, the third thing I learned was that I am able to be confident and go outside of my house and speak to new people completely sober. And that is just really, really cool that and trust me, it was not easy at first, especially when I was the only sober person, because the whole year I was just like the designated driver everywhere, or like I would go out to eat with my friends and everyone would get a glass or a cocktail or whatever. And I was just like, I'm good with water. Actually, do you have lemonade? Like I had to get over the like embarrassment, which it's not embarrassing, but I had to get over the like feeling awkward that I wasn't drinking, which was a whole nother thing that was like, if I'm feeling awkward for not drinking, like then there is a bigger thing that we need to deal with here. And it's the fact that, you know, I'm letting society and other people's thoughts and opinions on what I'm doing with my life and my body affect how I feel about myself. And that is something I'm working on in all areas of my life. But it was really prevalent here that the fact that I was feeling embarrassed or awkward. It's like, girl, you're giving people too much power. But it was really cool to kind of be able to feel that confidence over the year grow. And like towards the end of the year, I was like, oh my God, I could do anything sober. You know, like I was at a wedding sober. I traveled to Europe sober. I was in Portugal on a boat, which drinking a cocktail would have been so nice and refreshing. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm this many months in, like I'm not gonna ruin it now. And so it was really cool to kind of gain that confidence, gain that self-control, gain that self-awareness of just being okay with being myself in public. And yeah, that was a big one that I learned for sure. And I feel like it's carried into other areas of my life post sober year. Another thing that I learned, I think I'm on number 4 or number 5, I'm not sure, was that I really only want to drink for special occasions or holidays or birthdays or celebrating something. And, you know, it's fun to, you know, partake in the celebration. And even then, I really don't feel like I need to be drunk to celebrate something, but that's kind of like the culture, and being in your 20s and 30s or whatever, that's like what we do. And I do want to partake in that. But I'm also totally fine being like, no, I'm gonna not drink tonight. I'm happy to drive or to just be here sober. And it's nice to be able to like make those decisions rather than feeling like I just have to drink because we're celebrating something. The next thing I learned, and this was really huge for me as well, was that I was the best I have been, I think, in my entire life mentally in 2022 to 2023. And I just simply don't think that was a coincidence from me being sober to my mental health being the best it's ever been. And I think that's because I was just so in tune with my body. I was able to really understand when I was feeling things, what I was feeling. I was able to pinpoint anxiety. I was able to pinpoint stress and things like that because I was just sober the whole year. And, you know, when normally I would go out in public and maybe I would feel anxious because of something that is in the environment, and normally if I was drinking that would just get covered up by the alcohol, but I was like, oh, I'm actually feeling anxious in this moment, and I could feel that, and my body was able to kind of work through that fully on my own. So that was something that I really think helped with my mental health, was that I was so in tune with how I was feeling that I was able to kind of, you know, work through whatever mental health issues I was having because I was aware of them. And sometimes I think we just feel things and we're not sure where they're coming from or why we're feeling those things. And if you drink to kind of cover that up, or you smoke or whatever it is to kind of cover it up, you're never really like allowing your full sober self to cope or work on those feelings without needing the help of a substance. So that was really cool for me as well. Okay, I've said this each time I've gone to another lesson, but a really, really big one for me was that the feelings that I was feeling the day after drinking were just absolutely not worth the fun, and I'm using air quotes for people listening in audio, the fun that I was having the night before, right? Like, I was waking up physically feeling sick, like physically feeling so ill, like, you know what a hangover feels like, but like so bad, like head pounding, stomach nauseous, like just physically feeling so down, like body aching. Then my mental was also like so bad. I was having like anxiety. I was like, oh my God, what did I say? Was I embarrassing? Did I do something? All this stuff, like that was terrible. And I was like not even remembering the fun that I had the night before because I was blacking out. So all I'm remembering and all I'm left with is now these anxious, terrible feelings of being sick and anxious and like, you know what I mean? Like, and so to me, it was, none of that was worth it. So I was like, I don't want to put myself in a position to be feeling like that very often, or if ever again, if possible. So that was another thing that I really learned was like, what am I valuing here? I know it's like, okay, you feel Sunday morning, you feel shitty, you would go about your week and it's fine. Then you do it all over again next weekend. Like, no, that stuck with me for more than just a day. Like, I hated that feeling. So I wanted to really make sure I was putting value into making myself feel good and doing things that brought me joy rather than shutting down a day of my week because I was so hungover, both physically and mentally. And so that was a big, big lesson for me is like, okay, I don't really want to feel like that. So what am I going to do about feeling like that? You know, we got to work on that. And then another thing I learned was that I can do anything I set my mind to. And this has nothing to do with drinking at all, but it was the fact that I said, I'm going to do something for a year, which is a very long time. And I was able to do it. I did it. I didn't slip up once. That was really, really cool. And like, it just proved to me that I can do anything I set my mind to. If I want to set a goal to do something for a year, if I want to set a goal to do something a certain amount of times a week, like I can freaking do it because I had enough self-control to not drink for 365 days. Like I can do anything. And I feel like that's really the coolest part when you set a goal for yourself is like realizing, okay, if I can do this, I'm in full control of, you know, if I achieve my goals or not. And it's really cool to feel that power of like, okay, I did this goal, like I'm going to do my next goal and whatever. It really sets you on a good path. And I feel like actually after that year was really when like the goal setting bug got into me and I started to be really good about setting goals and trying to make plans to follow them. So it really kickstarted a whole nother side of my like organizational personality that I already had, but like the goal setting side of that, it really set that on fire, which was awesome. Yeah, something I learned a lot during that year was that I love sober Alexandra Cucinato, and so why would I do something to change that person so drastically? If you've been around me when I've been extremely drunk, you know I cry, I get mean, and that was another thing I really, really hated about myself was that I was like mean to people, like my friends, people that I loved, I was being mean to, and that is something I hated and don't ever want to identify with. And so, yeah, that was like another reason I completely forgot to mention when I first started this podcast was that I was like turning into a terrible version of myself, and that was something I was absolutely not okay with. So I have worked so hard on sober me, so I was like, why am I going to do something that changes that person and makes me act so much out of my character to the point where I'm like embarrassed and disappointed and like crying and being mean and like all this stuff. Like no, we are not going to set ourselves up for that big of a failure, and like it's not a failure, but that big of a, you know, just a disappointment in myself. And so I really did not enjoy that side of drinking. And so now I really, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but I have a lot of rules and things for myself that don't allow that to happen. But yeah, I think I talked about this already, but another thing I learned was I just am so much more in tune with my body after doing that sober year. And it was like I was able to not only feel my mental health stuff, like the anxiety and stress and all that, but I was also able to be more in tune with, like, once I started drinking again, being like, okay, I've had 3 seltzers, I think I'm good for the night, like, or let me drink a glass of water and we'll reconvene in an hour. Like, that is something I never ever did in college. I I was never like, oh, how much did I drink? Like, and the next day I had no clue how much I drank. And that was an issue, right? So it was like, now after doing the sober year, I was like, no, I'm going to be more intentional about how much I'm drinking, what kinds of drinks I'm drinking, because I know what affects me in which ways. And that was something I wanted to be really intentional about. And I feel like I had a good grasp on that after doing the sober year. The last thing I wrote down in my 10 things I learned was that I think probably after like my mid 30s, late 30s, I will just be sober. Like, I think, I really, like I mentioned earlier, I do want to experience like what goes on in your 20s and your 30s and just going out and getting a cocktail with people or whatever it is. Like, I do enjoy the community aspect of it. But again, you can get a mocktail, you can get a freaking lemonade, you can get a glass of water and still do all of those things. Like, you don't have to be drinking alcohol to do any of that. So that is something that I feel like I probably will just eventually evolve to. And I feel like I'm kind of already on my way there. Like, I just like don't ever drink. And so, yeah, that's something that I think will just slowly fade out over time and I'll just end up being sober. But yeah, those are, I think I probably said more than 10 or kind of meshed some of them together. So maybe it was less than 10, but those were the 10 things that I like really took away from my sober year. And it's actually cool to look back on that because it's more than a year since then. And all those things are still so true. And I still feel like I use all those lessons today. And that's really, really cool. But some of the like rules that I have for myself now post sober year is that I absolutely do not take any shots, maybe a mixed shot if, the birthday person wants to take a shot or whatever, like it needs to have juice or something in it. I'm not taking a straight up shot of vodka or a shot of tequila. Won't happen. And everyone in my life that I go out with and that knows me very well knows that and doesn't even try. And like, it'll be funny. Like I'll be with a group of people and somebody will buy a round of shots and like somebody else will just like take it before they even hand it to me because they know that I'm going to be like, I'm okay. And it's nice that people are looking out for me in that aspect because then I don't have to explain myself to everyone, especially to strangers. And so really all I drink now is seltzers or like mixed drinks, but really mostly seltzers. Mixed drinks even sometimes are too much. And so I really try to stick to the canned seltzers, and that is kind of my rule for myself. And I also feel like I have a better gauge of like making a limit for myself or an amount that I'm going to drink that night based on how much food I consumed, how tired I am, like different things I can factor into making that decision of like, okay, tonight I'm feeling like I can drink 4 seltzers because I just ate a big bowl of pasta or whatever. It's like, oh, I actually haven't eaten much today. Like maybe I drink 2 or 1. Like I'm able to kind of make those decisions because I'm more self-aware now. So those are kind of the rules I have for myself. No shots, seltzers only, and just being more intentional and setting limits and boundaries for myself and not letting anybody step on those or cross them. Yeah, some of my final thoughts are, of course, I have had nights that I've still gotten pretty drunk, especially like the New Year's that I ended my sober year on. Like I really went all out because it was New Year's. I hadn't drank in a year, whatever. But the farther I get away from the sober year, the less I want to drink. And that's really cool that I'm like, I didn't just do it for a year and feeling like, okay, I'm just going to go back to my old ways. Like it's nice and empowering that I did the work for a year and now it's actually still existing in my life. And yeah, that's really cool. And I've just gained so much confidence and knowledge about myself and drinking in general that I feel really good about where I'm at with it now. And lastly, I really encourage, again, I'm not telling anybody what to do. Drink whenever you want, have as much as you want. If that works for you, I'm so happy for you. I just can't physically do that anymore. But I do encourage people to do a sober year or a sober 6 months or a sober month and just reflect on, how it makes you feel, why you're drinking, what your goal is with drinking. And yeah, I think it could be really eye-opening and life-changing for a lot of people. And if you go right back to the same habits that you had before, like that's really cool. And at least you can still say that you like did this goal and you achieved it. And if that's all it is, like that's really, really cool as well. So I do encourage people to participate in a sober year or whatever it may be. I don't know if you could hear him this whole time, but he was just ripping up a piece of cardboard in the back. So I apologize if you could hear him, but we're going to just sign off the podcast here together. So if you're on video, you'll get to see Pootie Booty, Mr. Pooda. But yeah, that is kind of all my thoughts on the drinking and alcohol and just kind of my relationship with it and my experiences. I hope that was a little bit relatable for some people. If not, that's also totally fine. I hope that you're having a wonderful week, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode and you come back for next week. If nobody has told you recently, I love you and I'm so proud of you. You are kicking life's booty. And so yeah, remember to 86 whatever part of drinking alcohol that you want to. And if that's no part at all, that's also totally fine. But yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.